All right, so for my presentation, I was tasked with debt and liquidity analysis for precision against a number of our peers. So our number one strategic priority at the moment, it's number one in all of our presentations. Kevin talks about it with all the investors, repayment of debt. So we recently just updated the 2019 goal to 200 million. It's $150 million before. And we're hoping to pay back about 600 million by the end of 2021. So these are the competitors that we're going to be looking at. Obviously we have us, and we have the other large driller in Canada, Intern, and we have three of the large drillers in the States, in Helmerich and Payne, Neighbors, and Patterson Udia. But we can't just look at their names. We should also look at the relative size of these companies. So when comparing just assets, we can see that Precision is the smallest player out of all these companies. But when we take revenue also into consideration, we can see that we slightly edge out Enzyme. If we look at revenue as a percentage of assets, we can see that we're getting a pretty good bang for our buck on our assets, making about 50% each year. Okay, now for the meat of the presentation, debt, what it's all about. When we just look at the debt numbers, we can see we're pretty comparable across the whole industry. But we have to remember the relative size that we just looked at. Taking this into consideration, we can kind of see that we have a lot of debt. So most of this debt is held in senior unsecured long-term notes. The interest rates on these vary from 0.75% in Neighbor's case to 9.25% in Enzyme's case. And then we're also going to look at unadjusted EBITDA, and I want to emphasize the unadjusted part of that. So it looks like Enzyme has a huge amount of EBITDA compared to us, but this includes a $154 million write-up that they had on the bargain purchase price of Trinidad. This also includes our write-down on the impairment of goodwill that we had in Q4 2018 last year. All the 2019 TTM numbers are from Q2 2019. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Okay, so now we're going to look at the capital structure of these companies. So as we can see, most of these companies are fairly highly leveraged. Neighbors being the worst Neighbors having a 2.16 debt to equity ratio, and Precision and Enzyme having ratios between 1.2 and 1.3. The two basically leaders in the industry, Patterson and Helmerich and Payne, both have debt to equity ratios below 0.6. But one thing that I want to emphasize is that the debt to equity ratio, there is no optimal ratio, as Tavis said. It kind of varies depending on interest rates and depending on the market. So as I mentioned before, most of this debt is held in senior unsecured notes, which have various maturity rates. As we can see, these maturity dates go from 2020 to 2028, with Precision's most upcoming being in 2021 for $116 million. Hopefully though, we'll have this paid off due to the repayment of debt. It is also important to consider when these dates are, just due to the fact that these companies might be preparing for an upcoming payment and they might not be able to take part in any sort of capital expansion or M&A opportunities. So repayment history, this has been one thing that Precision has been very good at in the past. So as we can see, we've repaid about $93 million US in 2019 so far, whereas Enzyme's taken on $400 million, in part due to the Trinidad acquisition. We can also see the debt by year. We have been one of the only consistent companies of paying debt back year over year. So our liquidity. This is actually one thing I didn't know coming into this project. Companies have something called a revolving credit facility, which is basically kind of like a credit card that they can draw on if they see the opportunity for expansion or for M&A. So we can see here that